a card like Giant Growth, weirdly, like if you build your deck to be kind of the aggressor, you can use it a lot like Swords to Plowshares, as weird as that sounds. But what I'm talking about is like you just get to attack with all your creatures into your opponent's new fresh big blocker, and whatever they block, you'll Giant Growth, and the +3/+3 should be like a large enough stat swing that you'll just win the combat outright. And if you think about that, it's kind of like their creature died and your creature didn't deal damage that turn, which
Yeah.
is kind of a similar result to that.
Okay, so Jacob, we've got the big Arena Limited Championship qualifier coming up this weekend. How prepared do you feel for it in Secrets of Strixhaven Draft?
Not as much as I'd like to be. I've been focusing on Modern and just playing other games more recently than playing Strixhaven Draft. I've done a few. I'll probably maybe do a few more before then.
Yeah, and life stuff, imagine, gets in the way
Yep.
too. That's how it's kind of been for me. I also am not super prepared. Luckily, draft is one of those things where if you're kind of experienced player and you know it well, you always kind of have a chance. And I've definitely done some drafts.
Yeah, and I guess I like have a little bit of confidence in this format that like I feel like it kind of clicks to me, and like there's nothing really surprising going on to me, especially because there's only like 5 major archetypes, the supported colors, and then there's playing multicolored decks, and I'll get into like I have a blue black kind of deck that I think counts as one of those multicolored soup piles, but I think you can basically draft like blue and black cards. I'll get into that later, but besides that, it's just like I think I understand the plans of each of the schools to some extent. Some of them I think are kind of pure full on aggro decks, and some of them are control decks, and some of them have a little bit of flexibility. But
yeah, in a lot of ways, we've like seen versions of this format before, given that it's like a guild format. Um, those have a lot of overlapping similarities when there's only 5 decks, and a lot of the time too, 1 or 2 decks will often mesh into like, being a multicolored soup kind of deal, which you mentioned, control-ish style of decks. This kind of happened with the first Strixhaven
yeah,
in a way. In fact, it was almost real similar where I think white black was kind of the best deck, and it was like an assertive aggro deck. And then beyond that, like the teamer combination of colors were all sort of one deck, and they were up next. That's from what I
yeah,
remember.
I remember those two categories of decks being good. I think I valued them in the opposite order, but
Sure.
still, yeah.
Yeah. So we are planning on talking about SOS Draft today, and that's because this event that happens on the weekend is like it's kind of a pretty big deal. It's like not only a combination of kind of like an arena open where it's a high stakes event where you can win cash prizes of $2,000 or $1,000, but it also has qualifications attached to it for the, I believe, Arena Limited Championship, which is like an arena event, right?
Yes, you do not qualify for the limited championship, I think is what they're calling it. You qualify for the arena limited championship. I don't know the dates of any of these. My understanding is, hopefully the arena limited championship is a pure limited arena, you know, style event, kind of like you'll see the historic ones or stuff like that. And I know that the paper limited championship is a pure limited event. I don't know the date of that one either, but I know some people have already qualified for it. And I believe the Arena Limited Championship can give you invites to the Paper Limited Championship. So it's very similar to this kind of arena qualifier weekend type of stuff we've seen, but all based on like limited events, which I'm guessing there's just going to be one of each year. But that makes sense.
Yeah, that would be cool. The limited championship that's happening in paper has never happened before. It's basically a limited only pro tour is one way you can think of it.
Yep.
And it's really cool. It's really going to be really high stakes. I know a lot of people are excited for it. There's going to be a lot of veteran players trying to qualify for it, I think. Just because it's the first of its kind, it's not guaranteed to be like a thing they're always going to do. It might just depend how well this does, that sort of thing. So yeah, all that is to say, this event this weekend's pretty important. We've had one of these already, And basically the way they work is it's like halfway between. I mean, there's like elements of an Arena Direct here and elements of like the old Arena Opens. So basically,
Yeah, I mean the arena directs are kind of gone now, right? So this seems like it's
they
replaced them.
are. I think they basically stated that this was replacing them.
Yeah.
Um, and so basically how it works is it's going to be open on Arena for 2 days, I believe. Yeah, 2 days,
Yep.
the
16th to
16th and the
17th.
17th.
But no, that's limited championship. Sorry, so that's in January 2027. That's what you're qualifying for. It's this
Oh, I
weekend,
see.
right? It's
Yeah, yeah, of course, this weekend, not
yeah.
January
So
2027. Yeah, yeah. But it's just,
we both
but
read
it's
that at
both
the exact
days.
same time. It's funny. So it must be. I think it's going to be Friday. So it must be the 5th and the 6th.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2 days. So basically,
Yeah.
how it works though is there's two drafts, and it's not like an Arena Open where you play as much as you want on the first draft, and then the second draft is on day two at a specific time. It's actually just you play as much as you want on either of them. So you enter the first draft. They cost 5,000 gems or 25,000 gold. It's best of one Strixhaven draft. So you draft and then you play a familiar structure where it's 7 wins. You have to get 7 wins before you get 2 losses. So you're only afforded 1 loss. You get some amount of gems back on the way, but if you get 7 wins, it sort of unlocks this other event for you, which they call Qualifier Draft 2. And once you're in this draft, you draft again, and this time the prizes are much better. So if you first of all, if you lose right away, you don't get anything. But if you get 1 win, you get 6,500 gems. If you get 4 wins, you get 10,000 gems. That's all scaling through that. And then at 5 wins, you get $1,000, and you get the qualification. And at 6 wins, you get $2,000 in the qualification. And then in theory, if you've done all this, you could just either you win or lose. You could just do it again.
Yeah.
Um,
And these are best of one. I mean, they can go fast.
yeah, and you could also lose a lot of money really fast.
Yeah, definitely. And notably, I'm kind of, this is a little small thing, but I see you claim your prize, I'm guessing, in your first draft. So if you get 7 wins, you'll get more gems than you entered with just by 500, but you'll get your entry back. And then, like, it's just kind of interesting because on the draft 2, the amount of gems you get after 0 is kind of scaling up from there. So
And
it's
like
like
a free roll.
Yeah, so it's like almost double that.
Yeah, so getting into the second draft is actually pretty huge. When this was around before, it was Lorwyn Eclipsed best of one, and I didn't like that format very much. I know you didn't either.
No, I mean, weirdly enough, that format, I guess you could say, it was kind of, if you just look at it from the outside, may look similar, where they really only gave you like 5 things you were supposed to draft. But I just think it was like way more aggressive, and in reality, it was more like 5 things you were supposed to draft, whereas this format feels, I don't know, like 7 things you can draft, maybe, just a little bit more narrowed in.
Yeah. How much did you play the last event?
I think I only tried once because I just couldn't really deal with playing best of one Lorwyn, and probably was busy with something else that weekend.
Yeah, from what I remember, so I think 5,000 gems is the equivalent of like 25 real dollars. So, you can burn through them pretty quick, especially since you can only afford 1 loss and it's best of one. Kind of like thinking like an Arena Direct, it's a little cheaper to enter than an Arena Direct in that sense. But I think I did, I don't know, I think I spent somewhere between $100 and $200 trying to qualify for the day 2 draft, and I think I never got one. And then I became worried that it was so difficult to get the cash prize that I might spend like hundreds of dollars and not get there, especially since I didn't feel particularly, strong about that format. Like I didn't feel like my win rate was particularly good. So I think I just gave up. So that's a real fear. I mean, because one of the things that can happen is the prize is so big that like you can justify spending hundreds of dollars on runs, because if you just get that one 5 or 6 win run in the second draft, you'll make all your money back plus get the qualification. So it can be a little like if you it can be a little predatory if you want to watch yourself if you have any gambling tendencies or anything like that. Maybe set a limit for how many times you're willing to play. Because I do know that it can be a bit of a heartbreaker if you go really hard and don't get there. So
Yeah.
be prepared for that.
Um,
So all of this is sort of just a setup to say that like this is why we've justified talking about draft for this set this week. We don't typically do that. I find it to be a fun excuse because I quite like limited, and I think it'll be fun to talk about. And of course, if you just want to do better at your F&M or whatever event you got coming up, this ought to be somewhat helpful for you as well.
yeah, hopefully there's some nice lessons kind of generally about draft, because to be honest, in this format especially, I think I'm just, going a lot of the way personally with just things I know about draft more generically than things specific to this format.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times in a format, I'll have not every time, but if I've drafted a lot, I'll have like some plan or something that I can like maybe soft force or like I know these little secret archetypes and this sort of thing, things I prefer. I don't really have that here. I think part of the reason is because the archetypes are so narrowed and so like the gold cards are so powerful, and you kind of just want to draft an open lane and or I've just not figured out anything particularly useful. But yeah, we're gonna do our best to share what we know, and we'll see how it goes. So, in terms of the format at large, just a bird's eye view in terms of how the decks are performing. There's obviously the 5 schools. Um, Ahead of the pack in terms of like 17 lands data win percentage, we have white black, which is
Silver Quill.
Silver Quill, thank you, at 55.3%. Now, this is in comparison to the 17 lands users win rate is above 50% on for Secrets of Strixhaven. This is because, if you're willing to go out of your way to download an app that tracks your MTG data, you're probably a better than average player. And so the average win rate is going to be 53.8%. So 55.3, good deal above average. That's the best performing one. White red is essentially the same. It's 55.2. They lead the pack. Blue green or Quandrix is 54.1%. And then you have Prismari and black green tied, Witherbloom tied at the bottom with a below average win rate of 52.9%. Now,
So, yeah, I mean, this data seems a little misleading to me because I think white black and white red are color pairs that really should not splash, and that blue green and blue red are color pairs that really should splash. Now, black green is kind of a different story. This might be a bit more personally revealing to me that I think black green is kind of weak. I have a way I like drafting it. It's not like I try to force it or anything, though. Just if I end up in a black green kind of deck, I kind of have a plan. But black green, I also think it's basically a color combination I don't really like splashing in, even though it can. It has that green base.
yeah. So there's a lot here if you haven't looked into 17 lands data a lot, but basically like the spread here is actually pretty tight. So 55.3 being the highest to 52.9 being the lowest, right? That's just a couple percent. The other thing is basically splashing in most formats over the years. The data has shown it generally lowers your win rate. I'm assuming this is because splashes are often a function of drafts not going well or people making mistakes, splashing when they shouldn't. And so typically any deck with a splash has a lower win rate, and streamlined 2-color decks do better. That being said, the data is not perfect because in this format there's a lot of legitimate payoffs for splashing and conversion and whatnot, especially in like Prismari and Quandrix. So this is just, like a starting point, a broad picture that the white aggro decks are generally on top, and then, the other ones are a bit behind. But yeah, does your experience drafting reflect this accurately? Do you have a different sort of way you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, I like drafting the blue control decks. So to me, those are, you know, closer to Prismari or Quandrix, but I wouldn't really call them that. And in fact, as mentioned before, I like drafting blue and black in combination too. So this is basically blue with any other color except white. I'm sure sometimes it could be blue white. You know, you could have more incentives like that. You know, like Winds of Abandon or something. But they're still going to be splashing for the most part. There are some blue green and blue red decks that I think there's a different sort of thing you could draft that makes sense for those. But I would call them blue control decks is like a thing I really like to draft that I don't think is being represented by two color data.
Yeah, and this could totally be fair that this is a very strong archetype still. The data just doesn't bear it out, especially if you look at. I mean, you can't even look at blue black because there's just so few people have played blue black that there's not enough data for it. So
Yeah,
like a
and that
rough
one comes
example.
down to just some very simple like I want my blue card draw and my black removal.
Mm-hmm.
And you can splash bombs, gold cards. Another interesting thing, so even though there's no ally color support in this set, there is a lot of fixing, and I'm going to use Quandrix as an example. If you're a blue green deck and you're the soupy deck that can splash a lot of colors, um, you will get blue red lands, you'll get green black lands. So you'll have these good avenues into black and red cards, but there's no blue white land or green white land. So your ability to splash white is actually um, sort of tough, and by nature, your ability to play strong black white gold cards or red white gold cards is also kind of tough. Like if you're a base blue green deck and then in pack 3 you open an Arc of Hunger, that's kind of tough. Um, Similarly, if you're a base blue green deck, and I guess the black white broken rares are double black, double white a lot of the time, so it's a little bit harder as a comparison, but same kind of thing. It'd be kind of hard to play a black white card in your deck. On top of that, a lot of the best white cards are more aggressively slanted, so it kind of works out that you're not doing that. But if you're blue black, you get blue red lands, black white lands, blue green lands, black green lands. So even though your ability to maybe splash the double colored gold cards, like Arc of Hunger, same example, not a great splash in a blue black deck. Same thing, white red, also a little tough. But you do like maybe get access to splashing white a little bit more easily, and I think some of these cards, like Informed Inkwright, pretty good in my blue black control decks as an example, kind of as a win con, not even a card I play early. Just some stuff like that. The removal spells as well, random erode.
Mm-hmm. It while we're on the topic of your blue black deck, I do want to go back real quick to talk about Quandrix, but does your blue black deck, I mean, it doesn't have a lot of the gold cards and it doesn't have a lot of the like natural synergy cards. What ends up being your win condition a lot of the time? Do you mostly have to find a rare or two?
It doesn't have to be a rare. I've had Snarl Song multiple times. Green is going to be the easiest color to splash in blue black when you think about the dual lands as well. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of Sultai is, I think, maybe what people would just call it, but I'm just saying you don't have to be the blue green Sultai deck or the black green Sultai deck. I think you can be the blue black Sultai deck. Um, I
Sure.
would say, for non rare, certainly Snarl Song is going to be like at the top of that list of easy to splash. I think, yeah, a lot of times it's rares, but there's a lot of rares in packs nowadays. It's not that weird.
No, for sure. And
Arcane
sometimes,
Omens, not a literal win con, but same kind of thing. You can, get your opponent's whole hand. Uh, it's nice that, you have this nice, like, you have a lot of cheap removal in black, I'd say. You have the Last Gasp at common, obviously, but you also, on the bonus sheet, have, like, Bitter Triumph and Feed the Swarm. It's not that hard to find those. End of the Hunt at uncommon as well.
yeah. So like one practical way I can have you answer my question is like, are you willing to start drafting blue black if you're just opening like, stock up counter spells, black removal? You start there. You don't have like
Exactly.
a mathematics or a bomb or anything. Okay.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I
I
just
just
think, I
you
start
think
by
you'll find
drafting
something.
blue control, and I'm just looking for, the strong things to pair with it. And in fact, green has this issue that if you're blue green based, almost all of your good removal is going to need to be splashed.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's
So
going to be hard to be cheap because you might not have access to that splash early. Blue red and blue black, I think, have this natural, just like I just think I'd prefer to be blue black splashing green than I would blue green splash black in this format almost.
Yeah, one thing that's unique about this format is the archetype of control is pretty defined, and one of the reasons is because there's so many powerful like late game engines or card advantage or win conditions that you can kind of just do what you said, where you just sort of start drafting a control deck straight from the beginning, assuming it's going to work out. Whereas some formats, like if you just take all card drawing and removal, you can be, you like sometimes need a bomb in some formats in order to actually be able to reliably close games. Whereas here, there's just plenty of stuff. And a
Yeah,
lot of the decks will be straight control decks with like very few creatures, even because the win conditions they can find are so strong. And they just know how
yeah.
to play creatures that open up cheap removal to be good against them, that sort of thing.
No, that's exactly right. I kind of have a second ally color deck that I think is reasonable too, though it's still a 3-color deck.
Okay.
Um,
But before I forget, let me mention something about blue green that's
yeah,
on my mind while we're talking about splashing. So if you look at the 17 land state of blue green, you'll notice that some of the highest win condition cards are not blue or green.
makes
So
sense.
like Delian Fell, Impractical Joke is extremely high.
Yep,
Repel Calamity, that's a white uncommon removal spell. Practice Offense is really high. Arcane Omens is very high. This just goes to show that blue green splashes a lot. But then you also see cards pretty high in blue green, like not as high as those rares, but more like creature filled stuff and like tempo cards towards like the middle high end. And oftentimes I don't actually think those are going in the same decks.
agreed.
Sometimes they are, but a lot of the time that is signifying that there's like kind of another deck within blue green where if you just draft straight Quandrix, that deck's more of like a tempo aggro green deck, whereas this control deck is something different.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Um, so I'll talk about the tempo deck actually, because that'll lead into my other deck.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think not that I'm drafting some weird critical mass of 1-drops, but if in this format, and I think this has been true in limited maybe for a while, if you draft a 2-color aggro deck and you have just an empty 1-drop column, I don't think you've drafted a very good 2-color aggro deck. I'm talking maybe just 3 or 4 cards being there, but that's a huge deal. And this is both, creatures, but it's also tricks and combat tricks, or maybe something I wouldn't call a combat trick like Royal Treatment, which I love. They're just really good ways to trade up on mana, which is how you capitalize on these. So it's not even about the fact that you're playing Royal Treatment on turn one. Obviously, you're not, but just at some point in the game, that Royal Treatment is going to be worth a lot of mana. A card I'm really surprised is low on the data is Giant Growth, because I just think that card's really good at trading up on mana, even though it's purely combat driven. It's not actually purely combat driven. There is Last Gasp. That's not really going to go up on mana very much, but it could be a big deal.
Yeah. It is decently low, but this could be the case where it's again like just not at all good in a controlling style deck. Like it's basically a negative win rate card there. So even if it's decent, like a decent card or a semi strong card in the Quandrix aggro deck, the control decks I think are more popular, so that the data would get influenced pretty hard there, and it's not quite accurate to what you want.
Yeah, and I had mentioned, if you were a straight blue-green deck, your removal options might not be great. And I think that's kind of a challenging part about drafting it. And I think you can get around it. But what I would do is draft a low kind of curve creature base, try to play the board, maybe use something like Giant Growth to, kind of like a removal spell. This is, I guess, one of those generic limited tips. But a card like Giant Growth, weirdly, like if you build your deck to be kind of the aggressor, you can use it a lot like Swords to Plowshares, as weird as that sounds. But what I'm talking about is like you just get to attack with all your creatures into your opponent's new fresh big blocker, and whatever they block, you'll Giant Growth, and the +3/+3 should be like a large enough stat swing that you'll just win the combat outright. And if you think about that, it's kind of like their creature died and your creature didn't deal damage that turn, which
Yeah.
is kind of a similar result to that. And then Giant Growth also, just that number is so big, +3/+3, that it's also like very good at dealing the last 3 points of damage and being a lava spike some games.
Yeah. So, as an example, in formats in the past, giant growth type effects, basically they've gotten better. So, a lot of the time, to get +3/+3 or like +4/+4, I think was the cutoff. You'd have to pay 2 mana for that, and 1 mana just didn't get you as much. So
Yeah.
like 2 mana +4/+4 is not very good, whereas 1 mana +3/+3 is like, quite a bit better.
Yeah, and like I like 1 mana +2/+2s that you'll often see in other formats in my aggro deck. So Giant Growth is like a real treat to me.
Yeah, for sure. And so creatures are really strong nowadays, and just playing cheap creatures and removal makes sense. It's mostly just in aggro decks. You can think of it as like almost like removal. Removal's better in that um, you know, you can kill the creature and then deal damage. So in something like Silver Quill, um, if you have a lot of removal, that is oftentimes better than combat tricks, and in that reason I actually like combat tricks in white black less than I would or in white red even less than I would in like the green decks, because you have more access to hard removal. And if you actually draft a lot of removal, combat tricks are not good in combination with removal because they don't lead to the game being fast with creatures and creatures interacting. They lead to the game being a little bit more drawn out, and just less creatures involved in general, because either you've drawn a removal spell, not a creature, or you're killing creatures, that sort of thing. So but if you don't have a ton of removal, even in Silver Quill, the ability to get your creatures through is still important. You can't play a deck that's just all creatures, and combat tricks can fill that role.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, when you're green blue, there's some stuff like Run Behind, but I think I'd maybe look towards, like a Disdainful Stroke or a Brush Off as something to kind of interact with. Those are really for like I've played out my whole hand, and now really the only thing that's going to beat me is a big spell, and there's a lot of big spells in this format. Though, if you were playing best of three, you'd maybe consider not having those against like white black. Though sometimes people draft Moment of Reckoning and move into white black, even though that's kind of a different deck in my opinion too. Um, but yeah, I also think, I've actually had, I guess a lot of the times I've had this kind of aggro blue green deck, to be honest. I may have just almost always had either the Augmenter or the Trudge, which are rares. But my point is when you maybe open on one of those rares, it's a reason to be kind of an aggressive green deck like I'm describing.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And you actually haven't even talked about my favorite 1 mana card to play in these decks, which is Royal Treatment.
Yeah, no, I love, yeah, Royal Treatment, huge trade up on mana. I mean, honestly, against some decks in this format, the blue common, the dive down, I'm
Oh,
spacing on
Chase
the name of the thing.
Inspiration.
Yeah, that one's not as good because I think it's just not as good what it says on the card mostly. But sometimes if you play against one of these blue control decks, that card can be devastating. But as the data showed, it's possible that more often than not, you're actually going to play against one of these lower to the ground decks.
Yeah, those 1 mana instant protection spells that also give a little bit of a combat bonus have proven to be pretty good cards. And they wax and wane a little bit depending on the format. I remember in OTJ, Snakeskin Veil was like super good, and in Final Fantasy there was like a decent one, Magic Damper, but it wasn't quite as good. And now we're in a format again where threats are really strong, removal is really prevalent, and one of the main ways control decks handle the board is removal. Some of the times they're playing a lot less creatures than usual. Blocking is honestly not that good in this format. There's not a lot of good creatures to block. So when your opponent's relying on removal and you have a really potent threat in play, and you can, advantageously spend 1 mana to essentially negate your opponent's anywhere between 3 and 5 mana card, it can be super powerful.
So on that topic, the other kind of ally color deck that I've looked at a little is red green, which,
Okay,
to
tell
be
me about
honest,
that.
is it. I would probably just prefer to be blue green, but I think it's kind of just doing the same thing I'm talking about, and you splash blue. I don't think this is really like a blue control deck. It's kind of playing the same blue cards I'd want in my like aggro Quandrix deck, but red just has a lot of cheap cards in this set, and when you draft red green, you have a decent amount of access to blue mana with the way the lands work out, and
But
gold cards as well.
so most people who draft this format, they draft it, let's say they draft it 15 times. I'm like, that's like quite a bit, right? For an average person, probably.
Yeah.
I would not expect them to be in a spot where it's like correct to draft green red. there because you're just so often supposed to draft one of the like 2 color pairs or maybe a control deck. Because the gold cards and the lands and everything are just so strong. How is it that you end up in a spot to draft green red?
Yeah, it's got to just be kind of this philosophy I have of, taking strong, cheap cards, especially early in the pack, and kind of seeing where it takes me, and then maybe in just early in the pack, kind of determining that I've mostly drafted red and green cards. Um,
Okay.
but
Does
those
this mean
colors,
like
I
you're
think, can play really well together, and you even can get some interesting. Like, if you had to pick a deck that you kind of wanted to play Monstrous Rage in, for example, I think it's red green over red white.
yeah, and Monstrous Rage
Like,
is like a really is another example of a really strong one
yeah,
mana combat trick that's like extremely pushed. So okay, so like maybe you start with like a strong green card and you're picking a lot of green cards thinking you
yeah, and
might
then you
be
get stuff like Burst Lightning or the Joke or just Unsubtle Mockeries. I'm just trying to think of not rares, obviously, because it's a little bit more obvious. Like Molten Core Maestro, I think is maybe an example of like actually a cheap card that like I don't want to splash Molten Core Maestro, but I think it's pretty powerful.
and it
And
might be good in green red.
yeah,
Okay. I have to imagine this is still like a small percentage of the time that you would do this, but
this has to be less like my least drafted like thing, I'd say, of the major things. Like I would
right.
draft one of the supported ones or blue black more than this.
Okay, but it's something that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um yeah, so that's like the green aggro decks. In a lot of ways, I assume this is how you draft Witherbloom as well, or do
Yeah,
you like the
exactly.
life gain synergies, or what
I
about
don't
that?
really like the life gain synergies. I really like dissection practice, and I like just because a card gains life doesn't mean I don't like it. It's more like the payoffs I don't like. Um,
Right.
and yeah, the upside of green black in my mind is you're on color for the 3 mana common removal spell that I've probably might be my most played common in this format, honestly. Um, the one black green destroy a creature artifact gain 1 life.
Grapple with death, I
Yeah,
think.
grapple with death. At least of the gold cards, I end up in decks that can play that a lot because also I mentioned the blue black control deck or the green blue control deck, stuff like that. Um, Beyond that, I mean, it's kind of straightforward, but yeah, I don't really like being a soupy deck. I want to be aggressive. One of the cards I like in that deck, you actually get a good common 1 drop. The 1 mana 1/1 death touch you can pump. I like that card a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
That one just plays to the
Barag
board.
Butler.
Yep, and it can the Barag Banemaker.
Oh,
Um,
Banemaker. Okay.
yep. But that's a card that I just think scales through the whole game pretty well. It gets in chip damage. You find turns to pump it. I'm not saying I'm drafting a stack of these in my deck, but I want a couple stuff like that.
Yeah, that card pretty commonly ends up in my Silver Quill decks
Yeah,
because
definitely.
um I just value that it's a 1 mana creature that's never really going to go dead. And so it's
Yep.
something you can throw down early. And especially with Silver Quill in particular, you really want a 1 or 2 drop or both because a lot of the time your plan is going to be to play an early creature and then to remove your opponent's blockers for a lot of the game. And
Yeah, and like
you
Silver
don't
Quill,
play
I
well from
think.
behind either in
Yeah,
Silver
you don't.
Quill.
I don't think the black green deck does either. I mean, the Lecturing Scorn Mage could also go in these black green decks. I think totally.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, that
Another
card is
great
insane.
kind of green aggro card that I feel like I should mention is Additive Evolution. I know it's just kind of a great card overall, but that's like an amazing top end uncommon
Hmm.
card that just really can end the game.
Yeah, I've liked that in Sealed and I've liked that in Golgari, but I haven't actually liked it in like the control decks.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
honestly, I think your comparison to Silver Quill might be my advice to people trying to draft Witherbloom and make it work is kind of imagine yourself more like the Silver Quill decks.
just pretend it's Silver Quill, yeah, but instead
Yeah.
of the white removal or a bunch removal, maybe you have some cards that are combat tricks instead
Yeah,
of
and
being
maybe
free
you got
creatures.
something strong that makes maybe you just got a Delian Fell or, at one of the green 1 drops, stuff like that.
Yeah. Now, just green in general has like a lot of incentive to splash and conversion stuff, but I'm assuming you told me you don't like to splash in like green black and green and blue green, at least these tempo decks. Is that right? But will you play some of the converge cards with off color lands or anything like that?
I would prefer not to in these tempo decks. I mean, if I got together as one, that card's strong enough that I would. But yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, I would. I mean, it would be painful. If I see a Snarl Song, then maybe I'm gonna try to be a Snarl Song deck when I see it early. Generally, obviously, that card's amazing, but obviously, like the pack 3 Snarl Song, I'm probably just going to ignore if I've just drafted straight black green the whole draft.
Yeah. I did have a draft that was like I started in Quandrix and I had a lot of early tempo cards and I kind of really wanted to be just like a straight Quandrix deck. But then um like it just didn't really come together and I was seeing a lot of dual lands and I ended up with like a Snarl Song and I kind of got pulled into like the soupy thing. And this has happened to me before where I get pulled into these like soupy decks when I'm trying to draft something more cohesive, and it actually doesn't work out well. Like I feel like this is actually a bad spot to be in the format where you don't have a good control deck and you don't have a good aggro deck, and you're kind of somewhere in between. I've not had good
I
success with
That
that.
makes sense. And honestly, looking at the cards in blue green, it sounds like hard to avoid some drafts because blue is very controlling.
Yeah,
It doesn't really offer much to the green game plan I'm describing, besides just some of the bombs and then some of the gold cards like Cuboid Colony or the 6 mana 6/6 trample at common, the mascot, stuff like that. And then, Spell Pierce, Disdainful Stroke, Brush Off. I like those, but a lot of these cards are very controlling. Honestly, I don't, I'm mentioning all these counter spells. I want to point out, I don't really mean Essence Scatter. I kind of view Essence Scatter as like a 2 or 3 drop in this format, like a card you actively want to be passing with early, and the control decks kind of do that very well. A lot of the top end in this format is not card to Essence Scatter, actually.
yeah, like they're just not targetable because they're
They're non creature
big
spells.
sorceries or
Yeah.
something. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I will just say like one of the pitfalls I'm actively trying to avoid now is falling into these like control decks where I'm just sort of stumble into it and I don't quite have a really powerful or cohesive deck. I'd much rather, in this manner, I'd much rather just draft white black, draft white red, have a very streamlined deck where I'm not going to get pulled. I could just pass all the I can pass all the strong cards that aren't in my color and just take all the gold cards that are in my color. And for this reason, it's a little bit like Lorwyn, where like I'm pretty happy to put my head down a little bit, and just get a 2 color thing going. But it's more complicated than that, which is nice. It makes it pretty interesting, and it makes it so I haven't quite figured things out. But if you're struggling in this format, I would suggest just trying the like 2 color decks, and getting used to those and playing those and figuring out how to build them, which cards to prioritize, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So that's like a decent overview, I think.
Yeah, I guess I want to just point out. So I think we basically went over Strixhaven incidentally. Sorry, I went over Silver Quill incidentally in its goals, and we
Okay.
pointed out that Lorehold is kind of aggressive. Though I do want to say Lorehold kind of can play a slow game. A lot of that is in the power of the common Pursue the Past,
Yeah, that's a good
um,
point.
and it can splash. It can splash black grindy cards. It can splash blue grindy cards, or you often see the Prismari decks, blue red, splashing white for this type of thing, and you'll see Jeskai decks. I just kind of wanted to say all that. It's a little bit more flexible to playing a longer game and therefore splashing as well.
No, that's a good point, and that made me think of a couple things. Yeah, white red. Jeskai is like a pretty strong. If you're only going to play 2 colors plus a splash, that's actually one of the stronger color combinations. I think, um, is Jeskai, and then white red. It's not quite as all in aggressive as Silver Quill. Like you can play defensively or from behind a little bit better. Your moves a little bit better from behind. Your creatures are too. They're a little bit bigger. You can oftentimes my white red decks aren't actually that aggressive. They're just like very assertive.
Yeah,
And
they're
if
just
like I
kind of
have a
really good cards that end up scaling really fast. The Spirit Mascot is just can go out of control really fast, even though like it's kind of just a great card. It's not necessarily because it's aggressive.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this just classic limited mid-range deck where like sometimes you have a curve that starts at like 1 drop creatures, with a lead interceptor, and you go all the way to 6 drops, and you're playing 17 land, maybe even I love Strixhaven, Sky Coach, the card that fetches a land, so you can hit your land drops, build up to these flashback spells and that sort of thing. So yeah, that deck is much more. I do think it's assertive. Like I don't think you take a controlling role. I think you play all your creatures, but you can definitely play like a mid-range grindy game with it,
Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so um, I think now what we're going to do is we're going to move into draft on Arena, and we're going to do a draft walkthrough. So we're just going to do a premier draft. This is actually pretty good practice for this weekend because
And
it's
it's not.
best
I
of one.
saw somebody complain that it was somehow alchemy, but that doesn't look like what this is, right?
No. I mean, there's an alchemy queue you could
Okay.
do,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay.
this is not alchemy. Um, yeah. So let's jump into it. In this format, I'm pretty willing to just like take the first, few best cards for the first few picks. That being said,
Yeah, I've been that way for a long time.
fair enough. That might just kind of be modern drafting, to be
Yeah.
honest. The way we're going to do this is we're essentially going to put Jacob in the seat. So, like, he's going to be directing the picks so that there's not, like, I'm going to be putting my input, especially on the individual cards. Or if I feel strongly about a pick, I'll let him know. But this will mean that he's the one directing the deck so we don't have like a conflicting strategy. Okay, so we got our table. So looking at the first pack, our rare is Postmortem Professor. And then some other powerful cards that stand out. There's Arcane Omens, Impractical Joke, I
Yeah.
suppose Quandrix Charm.
For me, it's between the professor and the joke.
Okay. Arcane Omens.
Yeah, I mean, I like that card, but I think I'd rather like be something a little less committal.
Yeah. The Joke is nice because it's just a super excellent card no matter what
Yeah,
strategy it's in, whereas the Postmodern Professor is like a
yeah,
black
I
aggro
agree.
card.
It's not going to go in my blue black control deck, that's for sure. And the joke would. Yeah, I would probably take Impractical Joke here. I do really like Arcane Omens, but I just think a one mana high impact spell like this they're really hard to come by.
Yeah. And a lot of times you want to start with a rare, but I mean, this is better than taking like a common removal spell. This is quite a strong removal spell.
Yep, it's splashable in my mind too.
Yeah. So we'll take that. In the second pack, the rare is missing. We've got kind of a slew of blue cards. We've got Campus Composer, Deduce, Matterbending Mage. In red, there's a Blazing Firesinger. There's a blue-red duel, Visionary's Dance, and there's a couple interesting colorless cards. There's both Potioner's Trove and Strixhaven Sky Coach.
Yeah, I'm looking at the colorless cards here.
Yeah,
You
colorless
know,
cards are pretty nice to pick early.
yeah, I kind of want the Trove with the joke. They're kind of a nice combo. It's like
Okay.
you can play the Trove and the joke in the same turn. And I
Yeah.
think when I take the joke, I'm more likely to be a spell based deck. Now, if I end up like an exactly Lorehold deck, I think I'm gonna regret this pick.
Right. Yeah, I
But
was
if I
just going
end
to
up
ask you in
anything
general.
else, I think I'd be happier about this pick.
Yeah. In general, like the Sky Coach is better in an aggressive deck, and the Trove is
In
better
a
in
deck
a
that has a
neutral
lot of
deck.
creatures, because you need to be crewing it, too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go with the Potioner's Trove because it fits better with our first pick. In the next pack here, uncommon, we've got Aberrant Manworm, Giant Growth. Not a ton great uncommons though. In our colors, there's like a Pursue the Past if we want to go right wed or red white.
Yeah.
Render Speechless is a strong gold card that's here, and we have a red white dual land. So, what's appealing to you in this pack?
Kind of the Pursue the Past, because it's a nice grindy cards to go with our cheap removal and our Trove, even though that is leaning into Lorehold. I don't really like that blue-red uncommon at all.
Abstract Paint Mage. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
even mention it. I think
Yeah.
maybe I should have just
And
to
then
point out that it's
we're
not
just
a good card.
already kind of, I mean, I know I mentioned red-green, but the Trove is pushing us away from the Giant Growth. I kind of just think the Pursue the Past is the strongest card in this pack.
Yeah, and Pursue the Pass is maybe deceptively strong. Maybe if you've played this format a lot, you've realized how good this is. But it is just a very strong gold card.
Yeah, it's
So
kind of like better than Think Twice.
right. It's very, very good. In the next pack, we have a rare. It's Flashback. There's also Tam, Observant Sequencer, Transcendent Archaic, and then there's another Potioner's Trove, Seize the Spoils in our colors, Blue Green Tap Land.
Yeah. What are you thinking here?
My thought is that I would probably take another Potioner's Trove.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I was wondering how good the Archaic could be. It's kind of big and expensive, and the Trove is really going to unlock a lot more deck building options here.
Yeah, I like it well enough. I just don't see it as much more
Yeah,
important than other big converge cards.
that makes sense. Yeah, I think when we have two troves, we can really get into like a lot of options.
Yeah, curious what you think about flashback. I think it's
It's
kind of
playable, but
yeah,
it wasn't like a super appealing thing to me here. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, pick 5. We've got a couple red, white, gold cards. We've got Carol, History Buff, Wilt in the Heat. We've got an Eager Glyph Mage and a red, white duel. Other than that, there's like a
Yeah,
Noxious
I
Newt in
mean, I
another
would
color.
probably deciding between one of the Boros cards here. Probably just Wilt in the Heat with the direction our deck's going. I do like Carol, but I just
Yeah, Eager Glyph Mage is good too. In my mind, the Wilt in the
yeah,
Heat could also it leaves us a little more open in that we could be a more controlling deck, but
yeah,
also
like
could
I could
fit.
see trying to get some blue cards from this position and just splashing the white ones.
Right. But then also, if we end up just being straight red white, it still would
Not
make our
going to be
deck.
that sad of a pick. Yeah,
All right, pick 6. We have 6. We have a Maelstrom Artisan. So that's kind of interesting. That's like an aggressive red white card that's pretty decent.
yeah,
Spirit Call Enthusiast, but there's an Ajani's Response also.
yeah. Probably just the response here. If the response wasn't in the pack, I'd probably be looking at the land to kind of open up my options later to splash.
Okay, you don't like the Maelstrom Artisan that much.
That doesn't sound like a card I'd want. No.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, certainly we're red white, but we're leaning in the more
Yeah,
controlling
very controlling
direction.
is definitely how I'm trying to draft this deck now. Yeah.
Okay, and do you have a preference? I guess you must. Do you have a preference for drafting it controlling, or do you think the cards we've just been seeing
Just
those
because
are
I'm
the better ones?
I've mostly because I've taken the Potioner's Troves.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
really the only thing going on here.
Yeah. So pack 7 in our colors, we have Helping Hand, Shadowed Acolyte, Expressive Fire Dancer. Suppose there's a Chase Inspiration and a Campus Composer in blue.
Yeah, I might take the Lifelink 2-drop just because I think it's going to line up a little bit better.
Okay.
It's definitely submitted like being more white. The Campus Composer is not really good enough to take as a blue card here. I think.
Yeah. That sounds about right. If we were drafting the red white, like more aggressive deck, I think Expressive Fire Dancer is slightly better, but this makes
Yeah.
sense.
Okay.
So now we have an interesting pick. We have a Stormcarved Coast, a pretty good dual land that we could potentially use, and then a Transcendent Archaic.
Yeah, I want the Transcendent Archaic with the 2 Troves. I mean, I just want to make sure, like, I have a huge kind of amount of refill available to me as this type of deck.
Yeah, that seems
Um,
reasonable. I mean, we're not guaranteed to play blue, although
we would, yeah, I mean,
decently likely
it's
at this
nice,
point.
but I think we'll have hopefully a lot of options to get converged splashes or things like that.
Okay. Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Wrapping things up in pick 9 here, we have nothing in our colors. There's a lot of green black cards, and then one white black and one green blue. What do you think?
Yeah, I might take the black green land, even though it's one of the worst lands we could take, but maybe just to
Sure.
open up like a more converged style deck than what we have here. You know, like ultimately we don't have to play like straight red white as a base, even with this start.
Hmm. Does this pack worry you? Does this make you think like
No, not really. It's
the
kind
deck
of a
that's
bunch of
open?
horrible cards.
Okay. Pick 10.
I
There's
would,
a dual land. This is
yeah,
kind of
I
a
would
nice
take the blue red lands definitely.
spot to pick a blue red land. The other cards are just sort of mediocre teamer
Yep,
cards. Okay. So now that we're kind of winding up the pack here, you
yep.
can tell me if there's anything in particular you want, and I'm going to read off.
Pull from the grave. Oh, sorry.
Cool. Yeah. Pull from the grave.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to pick. I'll read off what we have right now. We have an Impractical Joke, a Shattered Acolyte, Pursue the Past, two Potioner's Troves, a Wilt in the Heat, Johnny's Response, Transcendent Archaic, Spectral Summit, and a Titan's Grave.
I would take the concoctor.
Okay, we're picking up a Tenor Concoctor out of, the last several picks
Yep. Yeah, this doesn't
or
really matter.
nothing.
The
That
concoctor is like a
matters too
world that
much.
makes our deck. I don't really think the virtuoso will make our deck.
Yeah, I will put it in the sideboard. Ooh, Mind Roots. I like
Mind
that
Roots is fun.
card. All right, so pack 2, pick 1. We opened a mythic rare. It's Prismari, the inspiration, the dragon. Uncommon, there's Archaic's Agony, there's another Potioner's Trove, there's Embrace the Paradox,
Yeah, I want to take Prismari.
Yeah, it makes sense. This pack's kind of weak, right?
Yeah, I mean, Archaic's Agony would be good in this deck too. Or even a third Trove maybe, but I think we have a bunch of instances of sorceries. We're ready to play Prismari. I kind of like that we have this like top end with big creatures actually, because we have this pull from the grave. We could possibly end up playing it.
Yeah. That's
This could also be the
reasonable.
type of deck that maybe uses Lorecaster with Pull from the Grave as kind of an endgame value engine.
Okay. And we do have some ways to protect ourselves too already, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're taking Prismari. I don't really think we're going to wheel anything out of this pack. It seems pretty weak, but we'll see. Pick two. There's two rares in our colors. There's Molten Core Maestro, and there's Zafai and the Tempest.
Yeah, the Maestro seems great here. I
Okay.
know.
It's not a very. We're in a very controlling direction, but you're still happy to pick this as a 2-mana
Yeah,
creature.
I mean that it just seems too good, especially if we're going to be base red, which I think we're going to be.
Yeah.
Even without the Opus like 5-drop trigger, I just think it's like way too threatening of a card. You know, like
And it just scales
yeah.
pretty well. Okay. Yeah, that seems pretty
It's
reasonable.
kind of funny. I mix up the Ard Prismari and the Zafai all the time, and Zafai's not very good, and Prismari's excellent in my opinion. So
Yeah, Zafai just requires you to have so much going on.
yeah, I mean
For it to be
Prismari is just
good.
such a large dragon with Ward pay 5 life at like the worst case scenario.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna take a multicore maestro here. Pick three. Looking at our colors, there's Elite Interceptor, Hydro Channeler potentially, Rapturous Moment, and then kind of some
I'm
black
up.
and green cards.
Yeah, I'm up for the Elite Interceptor. It's just strong. I think we're demonstrating we are actually going to be kind of a red-white control deck. I know, it's not like the best control thing, but it'll be good against like other control decks to have this kind of value creature.
Yeah, it's a little bit of like what we were talking about with the white red mid range thing, except maybe
Yeah,
we're leaning even more control and splashing for some big top end.
yeah,
So yeah, we'll take Elite Interceptor here. Pick three. Pick four. There's another Protioner's Trove, another Rapturous Moment. Not much else to be honest. There's a Send
yeah.
It Dust Speaker.
I don't really like the moment. I could see playing it, but it's not like a card I'm very happy to play.
Right. And even so, you'd want to be more of a like Prismari focused Opus deck, right?
Yeah, we're not really a good deck for bulk up, even though I do think that card can steal some games, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you have the Maestro already. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm down to take the Trove.
this pack's tough because a third Trove is definitely probably still
Yeah,
good, but getting
I don't
worse.
really want to take more Troves after this, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. But like the only other decent cards are just so
The kind
aggressively
of filler,
focused.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've got a quick study, unsubtle mockery, Carol, another Potioner's Drove.
Yeah, it's between the Carol and Mockery for me. I mean, the Carol is very good at, like, doing the thing, but maybe we're not that good at the leaving the graveyard thing right now. So let's just take the Mockery. We actually don't have that much removal.
Yeah, I think the mockery makes sense with all the troves and whatnot.
Yeah,
We're more of a spell based deck at the moment.
yeah, I agree. It'll be better with Prismari and stuff, too.
Pack 6, there's kind of a good rare in the pack. Sky Coach Conductor, it's blue. There's also Wilt in the Heat and another Elite Interceptor.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need to take the Lorecaster that aggressively. I wouldn't mind it in this type of deck. I probably just want Wilt in the Heat.
Okay.
I think the
Conductor, I
Conductor
guess.
is just, we don't have anything that goes with it. And also, like, I think a lot of times you want to play it and use it in the same turn, which is hard on a splash.
Makes sense. Elite Interceptor would probably be a better card if we were more of the creature deck, right?
Yeah, honestly, in this pack, the 6-drop might have been better.
Okay.
Okay, another interesting pack
So
here.
yeah, so now kind of the only real options are like there's Run Behind as potentially a blue splash, there's Heated Argument, Spirit Mascot.
Yeah, to me, it's between Spirit Mascot and Heated Argument. I think it would be a little weird to take a splashed removal spell over Heated Argument, Like,
That's fair.
we're still not really doing the Spirit Mascot thing, but it doesn't need a lot of work to be good, but we'll take Heated Argument. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, sort of ran a little short on time there.
Yeah.
It's just how it is some of the times. Okay.
I think it's got to be the land here.
Yeah,
really
there's a couple good like Sultai cards, and then some mediocre white and red 5-drops, like really mediocre. So there's also a white black duel, which is I guess what we'll take. We do have this pull from the grave we could potentially play. Okay, more mediocreness in pick 9. Sneering Shade Rider, Embrace the Paradox, Spellbook
Yeah, I
Seeker.
don't really care what you pick here.
Okay.
Embrace the Paradox is on theme if it somehow could be castable.
Yeah, I don't really see a world where it is, but
Yeah.
it is the most on theme card at least. Okay, we've got pick 10, Living History, which is good in the like Boris aggro.
I'd rather take Living History than the Zephyr, that's a thing that could sit and play, and maybe we get value from, and at least it plays to the board early if
Yeah.
that's what we want
What
in a
about this
matchup.
Rancorous Archaic with 3 troves?
I don't really want that in this type of deck.
Okay.
Yeah, we can take the moment now, and we might play it. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
really want the referee ever.
Yeah, Rapturous Moment, pick 11
I guess
over kind
that's
of
not true.
thing.
There's some things I'll play the referee in, but it's certainly not a control deck.
Yeah. And
This
then
is
some black-green
yeah.
cards.
I would take
So
the Glorious Decay if I was playing best of 3, and because had my board
right,
in. But
right.
yeah, it doesn't matter otherwise what
Managed
you
getting it
take.
into my server. There we go. Yeah. So wrapping up this pack, our deck right now is 1 Elite Interceptor, 1 Impractical Joke. We got Shattered Acolyte, Living History, Bolton Core Maestro, Pursue the Past, Pull from the Grave, Unsettled Mockery, 3 Potioner's Troves, 2 Welt in the Heat, Johnny's Response, Heated Arguments, Prismari, the Inspiration, and Transcendent Archaic. And in pack 3, the rare is Ral Zarek, so that's a double black card. That's going to be pretty tough. There's Soaring Stone Glider as an uncommon. There's Disdainful Stroke.
Is it
Terramorphic
weird that I want the
Stance.
lore caster because I don't want to miss out on it? It's kind of a really nice lore caster deck. It's really going to unlock this pull from the grave. We have 3. We might not play 3, but we're going to have like at least 2 Potioner's Troves in our deck. And at some point, I think it's not going to be weird to have 8 mana, and you can play the lore caster with Molten Heat. It's kind of nice.
Seems a little weird to me to pick it over Terramorphic Expanse, if I'm being honest with you.
I just don't think we're like that deep on the splash, and we have 3 Troves.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. I mean,
if we get more of these lore casters, I'm going to be kind of sad about it, but not that upset.
yeah. Okay. We got some nice cards coming here in pick 2, pack 3. We've got Pursue the Past, Quick Study, Unsettled Mockery, or I suppose Prismari Charm.
Yeah, I kind of want Pursue the Past.
Yeah, we're just super red-white focused.
Yep, and I just want more. I just want we just got so much removal, and we got the Maestro and the Zephyr in the last pack, but I kind of just want to make sure we get some 2-for-1s. Like Rapturous Moment is just not even a 2-for-1. It's like
it's just card filtering.
Yeah, like I'd prefer the Lorecaster to that stuff like that.
Yeah, and when you're trying to play 7 mana cards and a lot of removal, you're gonna and Troves, you're gonna have more mana on your opponent. You do need some card advantage.
Yeah, and Pursue's a great way to play a lot of mana and have card advantage though, so that's nice.
Right. Okay, so
this is a nice pickup.
We've got Practice Scrollsmith, which honestly looks far and away the best card for us. There's a bunch of Sultai cards again, so Black-Green was definitely very open, which is interesting because we saw that was open. We just never really had an onboarding point that was reasonable, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I really like getting the Scrollsmith here.
Yeah.
It's making me feel really good about playing this, splashing this pull from the grave even at this point.
Sure, yeah, that's pretty nice. Yeah, we're not passing.
And now we probably have a lot of value. Like right now, we have a nice mix of value and removal in my mind. We've also just made our living history a lot stronger. If we play a control mirror,
decide to play
we have something that can come down and give kind of repeated value.
Yeah,
no, I'm mixing up what that card does. Sorry.
Right, that's okay. I mean, if you're going to play an off-plan card, it might as well be a 2-drop, right?
Yeah.
So we've got, Wild Growth Archaic would technically be castable in our deck. We've got 3 Commissioner's Troves. Quick Study, Garrison, Excavator, which
I kind of want
trigger.
How do you feel about the other the 6-drop black guy? The ward discard a card. We kind of have a nice
that's kind of interesting.
Deck for this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm down. It fits. It's off color, but it fits better.
Yeah, it's kind of like doing this. A lot of the work Pull from Graham's doing.
Yeah, this is Forum Necroscribe we just picked.
Yep.
Now in this pack, basically our options are like Spectacle Summit or Startled Relic Sloth.
Yeah, the Sloths is really good. It's good with our 2 Wilton Heats. I mean, I know we have a blue-red land and 3 Troves, and we really only have 1 blue card we're trying to play, so I'm not really worried about that.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, and the Startled Relic Sloth is a pretty nice defensive card. Also good stats if you want to attack with it.
Yeah, I just think we're going to cast our Prismari a lot with the mana we already have.
Right. Okay. Not much here in pack 6.
Yeah,
it's really just tons of Golgari cards going around. There's
Spirit Call Enthusiast. It'll make my deck. You could take Betrayal, I guess, but
oh yeah, Banishing Betrayal, sure. But, this might be a situation where you would take a sideboard like Archaic or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know, but we're not playing best of 3. Okay, pick 7, bunch of Golgari cards. I mean, there's a Last Grasp.
Yeah, I might as well take the Last Grasp. I'm not gonna play the Wit in this type of deck or anything.
Right.
Like that.
Everything else is like Zombify, Teacher's Pest,
yeah.
Titan's Grave. Just not gonna.
We just have 1 white-black land, right?
Well, we can have another one.
Yeah, I think we'll take it.
Yeah, I don't. There's not much else for us.
Yeah,
Again, just a bunch of black green cards. We could have had a pretty good Golgari deck. I
yeah,
just don't know how we would have gotten there, to be honest. Um, none of these cards are playable, folks. I promise. I'm taking a rare.
yeah. You can take the Hamlet. Yeah,
Okay, I will
we
take the
won't
one
play any
card
of
in our
these
color,
either.
which is Dig
Yeah,
Site Inventory. It's not gonna go in our deck, obviously.
I'll take the Archaic, I guess. Yeah, we might
Sure.
need to play it.
I don't know how many playables we have exactly. I think we're okay, but I guess
Okay.
I have some random lands in here. We'll see.
I don't think we're going to play the second poll, but might as well take it.
Yeah, nothing else. Pick up a second pull from the grave. Sure.
Sure.
Only card in
Yeah.
our colors. Okay.
So I'm not that unhappy with this. I feel like I kind of achieved my goal of getting like a good mix of removal and grindy cards. This is the type of deck that can like never be getting milled, but this isn't sealed as draft, so that happens way less often.
Yeah.
Um, so we're gonna
So
play.
looking
Okay,
at
so
what we
we did have
have,
enough playables, I think. Yeah,
we could probably just not play this rancorous fella.
yeah. With this top end, I'm okay with playing like 3 tropes, 17 lands. That's a lot of mana sources, but keep in mind we have 2 pursue the pasts. I guess I could see wanting to get rid of this living history maybe. Um,
It's definitely our worst card.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe that guy, the 3/2 is better. I don't really care much for the second pull from the grave, but the 3/2 at least can like be a lot of bodies, be annoying, be something you can target with pull from the grave or form Necroscribe.
Yeah.
I don't really want to play 18 lands with 3 Potioner's Troves, I'll say.
No, I
But
don't either. Trying to think if any of these cards would be more useful. Um, White, black.
there's also it's kind of silly, but you can trigger your Opus, I guess, and cast a
Oh,
second thing
with
with this.
Strife Scholar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe the Archaic's better. The 5 mana one.
Yeah, with 3 Troves, you could curve into it a lot.
Yeah,
It's
on turn 4, you could
yeah,
maybe have a like 5/5 or 6/6 a
maybe
decent amount of the time.
maybe yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a 5/5 very often, and then hopefully a 6/6. Okay, I don't mind this.
Yeah, the Living
Gets
History
you
is just basically a
it's a
2/2 in
little
our
too
deck.
weak. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so this is one of those situations where our lane wasn't super open, but we like were still able to pick pretty powerful cards each pick, most picks, so we like didn't get pulled in any particular direction, and we did end up with enough playables. We've got a decent deck, but we don't have that many build options.
yeah. I mean, best of 1 draft. I'm gonna be honest. I end up with a deck I like that doesn't have a lot of sideboard cards very often because I just kind of draft to these limits, if that makes sense.
Oh, right, right,
I
right.
think I think this is a good example of like a way I draft a lot. Especially I had mentioned our vintage cube episode. This happens to me a lot, though, with a lot more lands picks, to be clear. But like, I'm pretty happy with this draft deck at the end of the draft because I got my 23 cards, and that's
And they're
fine.
good.
Best of
Yeah, you're
1.
not playing anything that's really terrible.
Yeah,
Um, okay, so I'll go ahead and read out our spells, and then we'll build the mana base really quick. So we've got Elite Interceptor in a 1-drop slot. Impractical Joke. For our 2s, we have Shadowed Acolyte, Last Gasp, Molten Core Maestro, and 2 Pursue the Past. For our 3s, we have 1 Pull from the Grave, with another one on the sideboard. If you were playing best of 3, that would be relevant probably. 1 Unsettle Mockery, 1 Practice Scrollsmith, 3 Potioner's Trove. At 4 drops, we've got a Startled Relic Sloth, 2 Wilt in the Heat, 5 drops, Johnny's Response, Heated Argument, Rancorous Archaic, and then 6s, we have Forum, Necroscribe, Zealous Lorecaster, and 7s, we have Prismari the Inspiration, and Transcendent Archaic. And I'll go ahead and add our dual lands. So we've got 2 white-black duels, a blue-red duel. We do have the 3 Troves. So do you want to play... First of all, do you want to play any islands?
I definitely don't want to play any islands. I'm okay with
because
these 4 sources for Prismari. It's not even like a fake. Sometimes when you play stuff like Environmental Scientist or Terramorphic Expanse, where you have to pick your color, it doesn't count as a source. That's not the case here. You draw your Trove, you draw your Summit. It always counts as blue no matter what. It's 4 blue sources for 1
Yeah,
card,
and it's
which is
also an artifact. It's not a creature, so it's much less likely to
yeah.
die.
It's also a 7 mana card. So like
Okay.
by that stage in the game, you'll have seen probably half your deck.
Yeah. Now we do have 3 black cards, and we do have the Converge cards. So how do you feel about a swamp?
Yeah, I feel okay about a swamp. I had a funny thought about cutting the Archaic for the green 5-drop and playing the Titan's Grave. Um, but
Oh, yeah,
just because
that's
that guy's a
funny.
2-for-1 in a sense, when
Right.
you're like, I like that card in these types of decks, because I think like it's just a 2-for-1 a lot of the time. You could
Yeah,
card
it
him with
doesn't
it.
sound crazy to me, especially since our Arcaic's,
They're very
big.
similar. They're two cards I've had compete with each other a lot, and obviously we're not really playing green, but we would just have 4 green sources, and we kind of obviously we're cutting a converge card, so really the Titan's Grave is also it's it's for the Transcended Archaic, which is not nothing, but it would be a card I maybe would consider playing anyways.
I considered the Embrace the Paradox for a second and then realized it was probably too hard.
That one's a little hard because you need
Yeah.
like 2 troves or something.
Mhm. I mean, I could see playing the Concoctor. The Rancorous Archaic does seem safer.
Yeah, I think we could leave it like this and just play the swamp.
It's enough
And that's
safer,
fine.
yeah. Swamp. The one thing that's nice about the swamp, like I think technically we'd have probably enough sources to be comfortable with just red white, but the fact that we also have some converge cards, I think the swamp makes sense.
Yeah, and even though like these pursue the pasts, I guess the Scroll Smith is going to be the toughest one, but that's also not a card you want to play on turn 3. So on turn 4, we should be able to play the Scroll Smith with just 1 swamp,
Hmm.
and Pursue the Past is not really a card you like have to have on turn 2, and we should still have a I mean, I'd probably just map it out. You'd want 6 plains and 7 mountains from here, so that you have 8 of 8, 8 and 8 within your lands. Um,
Yeah.
that should be 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, that's 17 lands. Because normally, you'd have 9, 8 if you didn't have any dual lands, which we have no red white dual lands, so I just know we're gonna have 8 and 8 with the swamp.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah, I like that this deck's mana is pretty good. Some of the problems with the control decks I've had in this format in the past is when you're playing the converge like green based decks and you have a lot of fixing, but you don't actually have that many dual lands, so you can have a lot of bad draws. Whereas this deck is going to have a hard time having a bad mana draw because we have just as long as we draw a red and a white, that's going to cast so much of our things.
yeah, and
Okay,
it
so you,
looks pretty nice. We ended up getting 7 like also breaking it down. We have like 7 creature, like 7 removal spells, 10 creatures. That's kind of nice. And then we just like 3 of our other spells are Potioner's Troves, and then our last 3 spells are just like dedicated 2-for-1s and Pull from the Grave and Pursue the Past. So it's like kind
mhm.
of a nice balance of like what our cards are doing.
I'm happy we have the Zealous Lorecaster. I think it
Yeah,
fits nicely with our Trove and all that. I think there's a chance we could have had this plus the duel, but I actually think you were probably right in wanting to pick the Lorecaster. Most of the time, it's like the Terramorphic Expanse is better in this spot, but I guess I was overestimating or underestimating how much fixing we already had for what we needed, basically.
yeah. Mostly we're not actually splashing that hard. Is
Exactly.
the thing going on here, and the Necroscribe really paid off having the Lorecaster too. I think
Yeah, yeah, I liked that
later in the
too.
pack.
That
Yeah,
was nice. Yeah.
we
So
didn't have it at the time, but that's like we also we could if we didn't get the Necroscribe, I'd maybe be interested in the second Pull from the Grave.
makes sense. Even though we have a low creature count, you just maybe need it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. I'll let you know all in the Discord how I do with this deck. I'll let you know the record when I play it later. And yeah, so hopefully that was helpful. Is there any finishing thoughts you have on the Strixhaven format, Jacob?
Um, no, not really. I mean, I think when I started this draft, I was really hoping to be blue red, but you know,
Yeah,
blue
blue is
is
just
I think a
not.
pretty
It was just not
contested
open.
color. And yeah, I mean, our only we opened a strong blue red mythic, and that's why we have blue in our deck at all. It wasn't passed to us.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm glad we made our deck work, and they also demonstrated that maybe this is a good example of like how a red white deck can be grindy and maybe splash black. Like the Prismari is just a bonus here. But like
Right.
imagine you could have opened maybe a strong black rare, or this deck's mana. If we had opened Moment of Reckoning in that spot, we probably could have made that work.
For sure. Yeah. Snarl Song would have been a good card for our deck.
Yeah,
Um, there was a couple options we had to pick blue. Like there was like a couple quick studies and stuff, but I mean, there was just in those same packs we had like Pursue the Past and those things. Something like a
yeah.
stock
And
up would have been excellent.
stock ups, yeah, its own class of stuff. Or like Deduce is worse than Quick Study is worse than Pursue the Past. I think stuff like that. The stock up's its own kind of tier of like the best kind of 2-for-1 in the whole format by a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
totally. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching. If you're gonna play this weekend and you have any questions about Strixhaven and you find yourself in our Discord, go ahead and ask us, and we'll answer those questions. Good luck to anyone playing this format, and let us know what you think about us talking about limited. We don't always do it, so we'll talk to you next time. Okay, so I was feeling kind of nostalgic because I've been sorting my collection a little bit. Um, trying to clean my room a bit, which is kind of a funny thing. Which is I don't know how it always
Uh,
ends up so messy, but
yeah,
it's
that's my task this week.
it's only messy in a way like I know where everything is, but it's just like more cluttered than I'd
We're
like. But
we're the same way. Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually kind of not like, not to really complain, but it's been an interesting development living with Olivia for a while, where it's just like sometimes I don't know where something is, and my suspicion is because she moved it. Because I'm like, no, like I would have set it down here for sure. Like, I know, like it may look like a mess in the pile of stuff, but I know where I set my things down. So
dude, like I don't know what it is. So that's so funny you say that because first of all, when I was a kid, my one of the biggest fights my parents would get in that I remember because my parents were stayed together. You know, they're still together, and overall they didn't fight that much. I love them both. They're really great parents. But one of the fights they commonly had, and sometimes they'd be like pretty bad fights, is when my dad would be like looking for something, and he would blame my mom for cleaning, and like she's
yeah,
looking, she's like trying to, I don't know, I can't find it, and he's like, I always place it here, I should know where it is. And you know, some of the time like it was he'd end up apologizing because he got mad and it turns out he had placed it somewhere that he doesn't usually place it. But that same thing kind of happens with me and Kelly where I was like I always place things, you know, in a particular spot. I know where they are, and then she'll like do this. She'll have a weekend off, and she'll like clean the whole house, which is great. I love it. But then I'm like missing something, and I'm like, where is this thing? I didn't think we were going to talk about this, but what I was going to say was I was sorting through my cards, and I remember that I had been collecting old standard cards because I wanted to build some old standard decks to like play against each other, maybe cross format, but also just within their formats. And I was like picking some of the best ones, and I think I decided that it's going to be too expensive to get all the real cards for them, so I'm going to have to proxy, which I didn't want to have to do. But surprisingly, like old cards have held up price pretty well overall. Like it's still like, you know, $100 or so a deck to build old decks. And I was just curious, what was your favorite standard format of all time
oh,
when you
interesting.
when you think off the top of
Um,
your head,
yeah, I mean,
or maybe top two or three even?
yeah, I mean, I'm really nostalgic for like, I don't even want to say the cons era because I'm not sure it's exactly when cons came out, but I'm sure, you know, a lot of the time when the fetch lands were out, I kind of maybe even liked it more when you had the fetches and the Zendikar duels.
Oh, okay. That was
Um,
like a pretty controversial period, I think.
yeah, I mean, I played the four color rally deck. I liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What other standard decks did I really like? Um,
Oh, I remember Four Color Rally. Yeah, that deck
and
was
then
really
yeah, I
good.
mean, Eldritch Moon release, I loved that. Um,
Oh, like
like
the Eldrazi stuff.
for rotation. Yeah, I mean, so Kaladesh was my first Pro Tour, but honestly, between Eldritch Moon and Kaladesh, I really liked that. So maybe I'd say that.
Okay.
I
What?
played. I mean, that's how I qualified for my first Pro Tour with Bant Company. But I also
Right.
really liked the Emrakul ramp decks, as well as there was a deck at the end of that format that was like this Jace, Friend's Prodigy, Prized Amalgam, Haunted Dead deck with all the Emerge stuff, and it played
Mm,
Traverses and one Emrakul, and that was
yeah.
sweet. I like that deck a lot. That deck might have ended up being the best. That was like what was kind of cool about the standard format is I played um like I don't know what the name, you know, something Mox related basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I played that deck and I saw other people played that deck and I think it did really well that tournament, and it's like that deck might have secretly been the best deck in that format
Okay.
like the whole
Interesting.
time. Um yeah, so I see like I qualified for the Pro Tour with um I'm looking up a timeline of this.
It's interesting because I was trying to think about what you might say, and I kind of had no idea. I thought you were going to pick something in like maybe in the time that I wasn't as focused as much on Magic because that's when you really started to boom on the Pro Tour. But
Yeah, so
that's cool.
like yeah, I qualified for the Pro Tour with Bant Company, and I guess Bant
Mm-hmm.
Company dominated this tournament I'm looking at afterwards, but like 3 weeks later I did pretty well in the mocks. I went 7-2 in a 9-round tournament with the like 4-color. The red was just for Kozilek's command in the sideboard though. It's just like you put a
Right,
mountain and a
right.
Kozilek's command in your sideboard, or a bunch of 4 Kozilek's commands. Or maybe the
Yeah, that
remaining deck.
format was cool.
But
Funny enough, when I started to think about asking you this question, I thought about what my answer would be, and the first thing I thought of just happened to be, and maybe this is, I didn't think of this consciously, but maybe this is the way how it is. But one of the things I thought of was the format where I first qualified for the Pro Tour, which was the cons format, before the fancy duels, the like Perry streams and stuff had come out. So it was like,
yeah, I was in that PTQ.
Abzan aggro was
if I
popular,
remember,
and
that was right. That was probably Fate Reforged.
probably, yeah.
I didn't lose to you. I don't think I lost to your finals opponent. I made top 4 of that event.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I played Jeskai, and you probably played the Sultai deck, right? The one that Shahar had just won Worlds with.
It was just green black, but
oh,
yeah,
okay.
It was that enchantment deck. It was more focused on the
constellations
with
okay.
Doom Lake and the format, the Eidolon and stuff. Yeah, so that was pretty sweet. But even that whole time, like the Abzan deck, I remember thinking it was a little bit oppressive at the time, but looking back, I think it was just such a cool deck. The Abzan like mid-range control and the Abzan aggro,
I mean
all that kind of stuff.
That format's up there for me too. I played a lot of it. Like for context, around that time, before and after, I probably played standard FNM at my local store for like 2 years straight.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that all helps.
That whole era was a lot of what I'm going to have in my answer here.
Yeah. I also remember pretty fondly the kind of the beginning of my like competitive adventures, like first going to FNMs and stuff, which was original Innistrad. And even though that format like Delver kind of dominated and I hated the Delver deck, I would play these pretty fun control decks that I would sometimes build. Like I had a blue-white control deck with like Gideon and Karn and Pristine Talisman and some sweet cards, and I would lose really badly to guys Steel Draft, Mana Leak, but
that format looked kind of interesting. I have an interesting like I played as a kid and I played standard, and then I kind of didn't play Magic much during high school, which was during
that time,
the end of Mirrodin return and through all of Innistrad. Basically, I returned when Gate Crash came out. So, but then I started playing again, and I had it's kind of funny coming back because I had the standard, kind of the known standard mono red deck from when I left, and I was like happy to have Arid Maces and Scalding Burns randomly as like an 18-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.